Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Heavy Matters podcast. I'm Joey, and today, as you can see, I've got two guests, Chris and Lachy from Australian band Mountain Wizard Death Cult. So this is probably my fourth or fifth interview with some guys from Down Under. So it's a pleasure to have you here, lads. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us on.
And we're all good?
Mate, doing awesome.
Absolutely.
Doing great.
So, Chris, you're guitarist in the band, and Lachy, you're drums, which is great because I play drums, but I always love to have a drummer's perspective when I'm doing these interviews as well. So it's great to have you here.
Cheers, brother. Happy to be here.
With a fantastic beard as well. Fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Chris, you're come on, man.
No,
It's coming along, but
I'm letting the team down, I know.
It's like every band I interviewed from Australia, like Jason from Yanomamo, fantastic beard. And then the boys in the boys in Burial Pit, Jack with his tash. I love that.
Yeah.
Like the Ned Flanders, love it.
Ned Flanders for sure.
So we're going to chat about your band, Mountain Wizard Death Cult, and we're going to play a couple of tunes as well, which I'm excited about because we're here to, give some exposure to the underground scene. And with me being based in Ireland, obviously we've got the UK and the rest of Europe, but not a lot of people know about bands in Australia, and I've been plugging it loads because there's some awesome stuff in your scene. Like you guys, and also like Burial Pit or Yanomamo, and shout out as well while we're here to Blighttown Records, which Luke runs, because he is signing some unbelievable bands on that label. You must be like, is it the perfect label for you?
I think so, man. Yeah, absolutely. Like we, it's one of those things where when Blighttown first started doing things, and you went from Sydney, they're based in Sydney, and just from what they were like presenting and how they came across, like these guys would be sick to work with. This is before we, ever knew Luke really or anything like that. And then they started having Burial Pit on and Yano and Master Leonard, and like we'd play shows with those guys. I'm already fans of what they did, and I've always thought, man, it would make sense if we ended up working with Blighttown.
For sure.
And then as time went on, just meeting Luke and whatever, and he was keen. As it got closer towards doing an actual record and kind of, had some other people interested and put out a split with another label that was awesome as well. We love the guys who worked with for them as well, but it just felt like, as far as like genre wise, it was like a really good fit. Like the bands that Luke's working with, it's like for a lot of the guys in Sydney, they're the bands that we'd want to go see a lot of the time, and it felt like a good fit. And yeah, just as people, man, they're just legends. And for us, it's like you could, shop around maybe and try, maybe get on a bigger label or something like that. But for me, I'd rather be working with people that actually kind of give a shit first and foremost, and really are about the music and growing it and growing it for themselves. And they're genuine, man, and it makes a big difference for sure.
Luke, for me, has similarities in respect to Brian Slagle from Metal Blade. That. He is like, Brian Slagle is an absolute metalhead at heart. At first you read his book, it's really interesting that how he grew up and just listening to Maiden and stuff, and he seems like more of the music first. And I get that from Luke as well. When I chatted to him on the podcast, he is very much about the music first. Like, he's very open and honest and says, look, I've worked so long, my phone's going off all the time, I'm doing shows, and he's working a job at the same time, but he does have that work ethic and love for the scene that I think really does, like you said, fit for bands. Not upcoming, but do you know what I mean? Like in your sort of genre.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. It's I don't think anyone really is going into playing heavy music with the idea that it's going to be the thing that's going to help them buy out Twitter or some shit. Like everyone's doing it because they just feel compelled to do it, really. And if you're not really about that, it shows pretty quickly if you're not really honest, I think. And like anything, there's always going to be some snakes in the grass. I think people want to push their own agendas and whatnot. So it's important that I think who you're working with really, there's an element of trust there. But beyond that, like you said, it's he's a fan, and I think that's the main thing. Everyone's a fan at the end of the day. And I could go around and just have a barbie with him. You know what I mean? Have a few drinks, listen to some records, and it would be sweet. And the fact that he also does what he does for himself and for us is kind of just a cherry on top. So we're really actually happy that, especially for our first record, wanting to make sure that whoever it was that was going to end up putting it out would have our back, and vice versa. I think it's good for both of us, man. So we're stoked to work with Blighttown for sure.
We'll come back onto the new record in a while, which I just want to learn about the backstory, because to be honest, I don't know massive amounts about the band. Luke put me onto you, or one of the lads put me onto you, and with your latest single, Initiation, which we'll come back to later. But my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you started the band in about 2018?
Yeah.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, about that. So pretty much like Lachy and I have been like playing together on and off for like about 10 years, to be honest.
In this very room.
Yeah, in this little room we used to be, like little drum kit, little amp, and we always played on and off. Yeah. And around 2018, I just bought a new amp. So I bought like a Marshall 800, JCM 800.
That was the inspiration machine.
Yeah, it was. It literally was that. And we just had 1 or 2 jams, and I got a new rig. And it was like, all of a sudden there's a few riffs there. Like, oh, this is sick. Like, there's actually solid ideas there, taking shape naturally.
Yeah.
And by the time we kind of had a few kind of past songs there, we ended up getting Lachy on board, who was a local, and then JJ.
You mean Tony?
Tony, sorry, you're Lachy.
Yeah.
Tony on board on bass, and then JJ, who's actually engaged to Tony's sister. So it's a bit of a family band.
No way. You fucking Australian, like I spoke to the boys from Berwick, and it's like Jack plays in this band, and now like people are getting married within this circle. It's so small.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how it happens, man. Like, and the thing about like passings are kind of done where sometimes you're trying to find people, and it's it's a challenge. I think it's for a lot of bands, it's a challenge to find members and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just worked out real easy for us.
Yeah, this was very organic the way the lineup came together in the end. There was no like auditioning for a bass player or a singer. We never really went out of our way to create a band. We just kind of accidentally did.
But those sort of bands though, like when you get to audition and stuff, it doesn't feel that natural because you're bringing someone else in. Whereas like you guys, I assume, have been friends for ages, and just like it clicked. And I'll take an example of another Australian band, Parkway Drive. Like they've been friends, and obviously at the moment it doesn't seem too great what's going on, but there's that natural gel between the four of you, which makes it a lot more emotional attachment.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, absolutely. Like our singer, like JJ, I hardly knew him before this kind of started. And Tony in bass, like I knew his sister for a lot longer than I ever knew him. So we, developed our bond and whatever as time's gone on. But I completely agree. It hasn't been like a hired gun type of thing. Like I remember growing up, I had some friends that were very anti the idea of having bands, having things with people that you're kind of friends with, and the idea that it couldn't be anything beyond something kind of small,
like a hobby,
a hobby. Like they have that. I think they have that mental image of your mate's dad in their garage playing with their mates type of thing, which I completely get. But I also think that a lot of the time, especially with bands versus like an artist or a solo artist, this thing just time. It just takes time for things to grow sometimes, and to find your voice, and to get things kind of coming together naturally, which has worked really well for us, to be honest. Like
100%.
Well, as you said, we've only put out a few tracks so far, and we probably would have done a lot more show-wise with the pandemic and things like that. But it's also been good in hindsight, really, because it's given us that time to really figure out what we're about, figure out what we're trying to say, what we're trying to sound like. And it happened naturally just through playing together and doing shows.
Yeah.
To the point now where we're like very, very clear and confident in like what we do, how we sound, what the vision is, where we're just super keen at this stage.
Well, you've literally answered questions that I had lined up. But we'll call the interview there. That's it. We're done. No. We are going to listen to a couple of your tracks in a minute, but the first thing that your sound, and we're going to listen to one of your earlier tracks and the latest release as well. And the first thing I noticed, there is definitely a clearer sort of idea of where you want to be on Initiation. And that's not to say your earlier work, to dismiss your earlier work, but you can definitely see the package you have now with Initiation, to me, seems like you have an identity about where you want to go. Define your music. So this genre is filled with death metal, black metal, thrash, blah, blah, blah. How would you describe your music?
So I suppose like the way we always like easily kind of put it, we'd say we're like a post-metal or like a sludge band, if we were to put in like a genre. But it's always been a funny thing because like if we were to play with like all of the more doom and psych bands, to be kind of at the start, would be a little bit too abrasive because of the vocals and whatnot. They might have that kind of that hardcore element to them, or a bit of black metal element and whatnot. But then, you know, Lachy, for example, like very deliberately, it's like only single kick. There's no like blast really. There's a little bit of blasting, I guess, and there's no like, you know, double full on tech drumming.
Yeah, no.
So we're not really like that death doom at that element. So they kind of sit in this like interesting place in between the two. So I'd usually just say we're a sludge band is the easiest way to categorize it.
Yeah.
So Lachy, quickly for you.
Yeah.
Blast beats, double bass, like is pretty much a staple, like in metal, like, you know, it is one of the most identifiable things. Is it just that you don't feel the music needs it, or is it the band saying cut out that double bass, or what is it, a combination of?
I definitely think parts could be complemented with like double kicks or blast beats and stuff like that. And I completely respect that style of drumming and think it's unreal. Like I've got some mates who blow me away with that style of drumming, but it's never appealed to me as a player and as my personal style. And I think with that chemistry that Chap and I've had for the past 10 plus years, I think my way of drumming, it's like heavily focused on like the groove rather than the chops. I think it just works for this style of music. Like it is very open, and I'll do like a lot more stuff with my hands that isn't blasting, if you know what I mean. Like I'll try to fill in the space with a few tom grooves that you'd be able to do it with double kicks for sure. But I like keeping my hands busy while I'm playing rather than just standard like up the top but going crazy down the bottom, if you know what I mean.
Let's listen to your early track. Let's listen to Putrid Light, which is off of the EP. Your only EP you've released, if I'm right in saying that.
Yeah, correct.
Because I love the actual intro to this song, Lachy. I love the drum bits on it. And then I'm going to come back and talk about Thrones after the first track, because when you said post metal, Chris, that's exactly what I had in mind when. So this is Putrid Light. This intro.
Yeah. On the bell.
Yeah.
That's my limit of playing drums. That.
Yeah,
that's all you need, bro.
Just chopping on the bell, exactly.
But there's definitely. Sorry.
Are you still having a hit?
Time to time. But this build up. This is the doom part.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we put a couple of little V's on this.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Those fills are so sweet.
It is, dude. It did come in the studio, obviously. Like, never smooth sailing, but when I did nail them, like I had the few dudes in the room, like JJ came and just pop his head in, see how we were going. When like the fill was nailed, everyone reacted, and it was a very good feeling.
They're so tight as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so most of the it's funny on this track too. Most of the other track stations that Reg tracked all that live.
Yeah.
All of us just in the room, like old school style, just kept going through some of the tape.
Yeah.
So with this track and Florence, we kind of did it backwards where we multi-tracked everything. Or we did the drum to last.
Oh really?
So we had all the drums done digitally, so like demoed out, the rolling kit, so Rocky had already gone and done his part. But we did the actual live drum performance after everything else, which is a very different way of doing it, but it worked. It absolutely worked.
I mean, this solo, and I love the vocals that come over the top in a minute as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a favourite part of the set, every set.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That. And like this is becoming not a lot more common, but the guitar solo always used to be, this is like the time where the guitar shows off. But there is a lot more now where the vocalist is complementing the solo, and I think that one works really well there together.
Hey, cheers, man. I appreciate that because we definitely are conscious in the sense that JJ does treat the vocal cord just as an like, as like a it's not feel like he's wanting to be a frontman, if that makes sense. He's wanting it to be like there's four people making an atmosphere. So that's exactly right, man. So all of those vocal parts are just meant to be the sounds and tones and whatnot. Like there is lyrics, of course, and everything is dictated. But you know what it's like, man. Especially in heavy music, it's the feeling more than anything, right?
Yeah. It's trying to find that something that's unique as well, that grabs the listener, like, you know.
Sure, absolutely.
This is a wicked track. Just know what's coming.
Well, Colin.
And would you have at live shows? Would you have people on the stage jiving, or is it very much this is our sanctuary?
In this part of the song, actually, for the past few gigs, at least in Sydney, JJ's called up our mate Dave Schwerer, who is Rim Reflections, who directed and produced our music video for Initiation.
Right.
And he's a brilliant vocalist in his own right. He used to front a band called The Crier, who we played a few shows with. And in this part, he drags him up on stage and shares vocals, and the crowd goes he's on stage.
Nice.
So, we don't have like the stage dives. I think we've had a couple stage invasions and
Yes. And definitely it's funny, I've noticed recently as well, especially that style, it tends to be, because he's like atmospheric and a bit hypnotizing and whatnot. Used to be early on, you notice it was more about almost that people aren't moving and they're just like standing there being crushed as a sign that it's doing well. But on this tour that we've just finished up, there were a couple of shows where it was pretty crazy, particularly our Sydney launch.
Yeah.
It was like from the start to the end, it was like shattered glass all through the venue.
There was
like,
fucking beer all over the stage.
Like,
the stage guy fucking hated it. It wasn't our fault. The crowd was going insane, knocked over shit. The stage got flooded. Like my drum kit is still covered in shit from that show. Yeah.
It was a good time. But yeah, it's not like, because we're not really in the hardcore scene, so people aren't really come with that mentality to mosh in that way, but
no one's like yelling at the crowd to like open the fucking pit up or anything. And they do it on their own.
Exactly. It just happens naturally sometimes. Absolutely.
So that was Putrid Light. There was definitely the elements of sludge in there, like you said, but there is definitely something else, which was, and what I'm talking about with Initiation, there was something that was threatening to come out of that. And Chris, certainly your guitar work on there with the leads, not something you would find in sludge that often. And we'll listen to Initiation later, where I think that gap, or you bridge the gap to where I think you've really solidified. So yeah, you started in 2018. You've released that EP and 2 or 3 singles. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So the first thing we put out was "Eye of the Sun," and that was just a straight single. Just to start off and start playing shows and start doing things. And then about a year later, we put out "Thrones of Putrid Light," and that was like a 2-track EP, and we did that to try to start doing interstate shows. And obviously, the plague came along and ruined all that. And then the following year, when things became a bit easier, we put out a split with our friends band called Astro Death. That was
is Astro Death one with the lizard on the?
Yeah, that's the one. Their record came out on Black Farm Records, and they're like more of like a kind of like a stoner kind of Kaiser kind of bit desert rock kind of like 2-piece type of deal. And we're great friends with those guys, and we've done a good number of shows with them, and it tends to work pretty well because we're both in that kind of sludgier side of things, but we're different enough that it's not ear fatigue. So they're great mates of ours. So we put out that split, and that's what Wretch was on. And then obviously Initiation, which will be on the record, which is the first kind of track off that. Wretch may very well end up being on that as well.
Okay.
Depending on the final track list.
As a re-recording, or just as it is?
It would definitely be remixed, remastered, absolutely.
Okay.
For sure. And as far as re-recording, it would just kind of depend on, where it's sounding currently. There probably won't need to be a lot of re-recording done for that track, but it'll absolutely sound different than the previous version for sure.
Some people might say, and I'm not saying I'm one of these people, but read into what you will. But as a band for 4 years, like 1 EP and 2 singles, it isn't a massive amount of output. Like, is there a specific reason for that? Like, are you taking your time and trying to find what's right, and you're not just putting stuff out for the sake of it?
Yeah, I would say, and we were actually chatting about this, I think, last night. Yeah. It's one of those things where I feel like it's been a combination of one, for us, we've never felt that kind of need to just put stuff out unless we're really happy with it, essentially. Yeah. We're not perfectionists in the sense that we're not like, going into every little fine detail, making sure it's perfect. But our process does tend to let things kind of be written fairly in the room. Yeah. And then when it comes to the recording process, we've kind of, again, learned really along the way what we find works for what we're trying to hear in our heads, So by this stage, it's at a point where it is fairly well oiled, where I feel like for the next record, for example, it would come together from like that initial songwriting to recording to release would be a lot quicker than what it is previously. So that's the first thing. It's purely just been us learning what works for us, really. Yeah. And then the second thing is really just been, I guess, what's happened with the last few years, everything with the pandemic. We do demo and self-record to a degree, but we do record with Dave Blues, so like a local kind of studio and whatnot. Do it that way. So there is like studio time and that whole thing. But also, like a lot of bands, it comes down to why release things if there's not a point to it, Like even this record is pretty much ready to go. But like everyone, you want to be able to tour off it, you want to put the record out, you want it to do well, and you want to keep doing it at the end of the day, right? So yeah, I definitely think like some of the songs on the record, to be honest, like, there'll be 1 or 2 of the songs on there that are some of the first songs that we've ever written, but they weren't something that we felt would be right for like an EP or a single that have to be an album track. Where some we've written, in the last few months, essentially. Yeah. So we're kind of at the point going, we feel like it's a good kind of snapshot of where we're at this stage. And I'm very confident that from here, it would definitely be probably maybe not a high level output as far as frequency, but I'd say a high level output as far as the amount of music coming out for sure.
And in terms of the songwriting process, when you go to record, is it you have everything done before you go into the studio and that's the final product? Or I always like to know and cause a stir in the band, who's the perfectionist in the studio? Who's like, no, we need to do that again? I was going to say Chris as well.
That's what I mean, bro. Yeah, as much as I say I'm not. Now, absolutely. I would say though, like, usually by the time we go into record, the songs are definitely written. You know, there's not
they all
much...
get their tweaks and little bits and pieces changed if it needs it.
Yeah, there's not much of a we better completely rewrite half the song, or we're gonna do that way. By the time we go in, everything's usually demoed. We know our parts. We're going in the knowing, and then you can have fun. You know, you can actually experiment with things and whatnot.
Yeah.
Aside from probably the vocals, so we definitely are very much a band that's like we write with the vocals in mind, and jam like that. But they're not written. The lyrics aren't finalized until really that's the last part of the process. Which isn't uncommon, right? A lot of bands do it that way.
Sure.
And that works for us, for sure.
And Lachy, how much input do you have in the writing process? Because obviously,
not enough. Definitely plenty. A lot of the time, like Tony and Chap will come here. They'll like flesh out ideas, sort of get the ball rolling, and then we will spend like time in the studio, sort of getting it all properly sort of written, I guess. Like they never come to me with a full song and say like, put the drums to it, or this is what we want you to do, or anything like that. Because Chap knows after this amount of time that I'm very stubborn. And if he tells me to play a certain way, I'm going to fucking play completely opposite.
Absolutely.
But no, there is a lot of bounce off everyone in the studio. I'll like even in Initiation, like the 7/4 groove at the end, like that was my idea. Like when we were jamming that sort of chaotic riff at the end, I was the one that started playing in a different time signature, then went back to like 4/4 and sort of made that happen. And yeah, there's been like many other times where I've had quite a bit of input in the way even the guitar and bass and whole musicality of it goes. So I'm definitely not Ringo Starr in this situation.
It's interesting though you say the switch in those patterns like 7/4 and 4/4, because 4/4 is the quintessential, you know,
bread and butter
rock beat. Like, you know, you hear almost 90% of songs start with that. Do you ever sort of think, fuck that, I'm going to mix this up just to annoy the rest of the guys?
I mean, I wish I was good enough of a drummer to do that. If I was, then I absolutely would do that. But no, I try not to like just stick on the normal like sort of standard rock beat or patterns like that. Like even in some stuff that we're jamming now, I'm like trying to do like, even though it is kind of basic, it's still a bit polyrhythmic between what I'm playing on my feet and what I'm doing with my hands. So I try to keep it interesting, which probably comes down to me not relying on a double kick. So I'm trying to make the rest of what I play sort of fill in for that.
Well, while I have you here, I'm interested to know about your kit setup and what you're using. Like, not in terms of model, but like, you know, how many toms you're using, snare, etc., etc. Because from what we just heard on that last single, the fills were very, very tight, and there was a lot going on. So I'm interested to know your setup.
Yeah. My personal kit that I play, just one rack tom, one floor tom, a big 24-inch kick, and a snare. That's just my go-to. That's what I'm comfortable with.
Sorry. You've two toms, a snare, and a kick.
That's it.
No way.
It. And in Putrid Light, that was the same configuration that I played in the studio, but I didn't use my kit. Nick Franklin had a beautiful old Ludwig that I got to play, but exactly the same configuration. But on the later recordings we've done with Bluesy at Studio Blues, I've favoured using 2 floor toms, so a 16 and an 18, just for that extra thud. But even live, I just prefer standard snare, tom, and floor.
Yeah, straight rock kit.
Yeah, just try to do more with less.
You must send me a picture of your setup later. I'm interested to know that, because that there's a lot going on for 3 bits of kit there.
Dude, when I was 17 playing in like a local thrash metal band, I had 2 different drum kits, like totally different brands, totally different like quality. But I'd do 2 bass drums, I had fucking 4 rack toms, 2 floor toms, a million cymbals. And it's not a cliche, but like as you grow up, you kind of do realize, fuck, I only need 3 cymbals and bass, and 1 up, 1 down, and I can do it all, or, you know, close to it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, photo of the I'll get Chap to send a photo through.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
Complete opposite mentality to my setup on guitar.
Yeah, I know, Chris. Well, we're not going to come onto the guitar because this is Lockie's time to shine.
Beautiful.
In terms of, so we talked about the amount of singles and songs you have, or tracks, whatever you want to say. But we've been trying to set this up for a while now, and you've been blowing me off because you've been on tour and whatnot.
Being a rock star.
But like, how many songs do you fit into your set? Like, I imagine, have you been on headline tours, or is this just?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
So, the one we've headlined, like the longest set we've done has been about an hour. So that's all, and it's all original. Like we've done like a handful of times. We've done like a cover, but they've all been about an hour is kind of our max kind of playtime at this stage. Usually when we do like on this run, we did some headline show. I think only in the end was only one headline show, right? Two headline shows.
No, not Katoon, but Enmore and Sydney.
That's right. And they're about 45-minute sets, which usually feel pretty good. Most metal bands, half an hour to 45 is fairly standard. And then half an hour is always a challenge because some of our songs are like 8 minutes, 9 minutes on the which aren't out yet. So the kind of proggiest, most like epic kind of tracks.
Yeah. Sorry, are you playing new tracks from the album live?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm with you now. Okay.
Yeah. And so to put it this way, like over the last few years, like there's some songs that we play live that we used to kind of play fairly regularly that we may never put out, to be honest, at this stage, just because at the time they were relevant to what we were doing.
Yeah, and then, fresh back then.
Yeah, and then at this stage, with where we're taking it, we're going, that doesn't necessarily. We think maybe like a B-side thing in the future or a bonus track or something like that. But then at the same time, there's some of these new ones that are very new. Like I said, Initiation was one of the newest tracks that we wrote, and then we chose that as the next one to put out. When there was still a body of work, we could have chosen a bunch of those that are pretty much done. Yeah. But it just felt like at the time this was the one that made the most sense. So did that answer the question? I think so.
No. And it brings me nicely onto my next one about length. Song lengths.
Thanks for clarifying.
This is being recorded, so this definitely won't. If that starts getting it,
don't go there.
But Initiation, I think, is about 4.5 minutes, something like that. Your earlier tracks are pushing around the 6 minute mark, and I'm very interested now because you just mentioned the new songs are about 9 minutes and have a bit more prog about them, because like I love prog. Opeth is my favorite band of all time. Length is like, people moan about length, whereas like I love like Opeth Deliverance title track. I could listen to that all day and never get bored because there's so much going on. Is this because Initiation's 4.5 minutes? Is that just a teaser for what's on the album?
Kind of. I would say in a way. Well, I would say that song felt like, as far as putting that out as a single, and starting to bigger, play more interstate shows and get out to a bigger audience, that was a good kind of cross section of what we do. Where you had some ambient parts, I had some just straight up kind of riffs, and then some more chaotic sections where it did feel like it was the first time hearing it, so you kind of get an idea of what we're about from that. So absolutely, that was deliberate choosing that song rather than some of the longer tracks or whatnot that maybe be a little bit less accessible in that format. Also, I think that a lot of people under these days feel that they'll do single, then EP or however they want to release it. There's no one way or right or wrong way to release anything anymore. And I know, like I saw before, we like vinyl and whatnot, so we're all still very attached to the idea of albums. And some of the tracks we kind of want to hear be presented in that context, hence why we've chosen that. But we're definitely not we definitely don't feel like we're tied to having to have short song structure. Like, when I was young, like high school, I love prog, I love Opeth, I love Tool, and like on the doomy side, I love like Amon Ra, and Yob and those bands where an album might be 4 songs, That's perfectly fine by me, man. I love that. That's my favorite thing, So yeah, we're not really restricted by it, I don't think. But we also want to kind of, we want to have a mix, let the songs be what they are.
So when's the album due for release then?
So at this stage, it's due around November. November this year is a
November. Jesus, that's a way out.
It's a bit exactly. November. It's a little bit, but it is definitely coming.
Jesus, you boys don't do things quick, do you? You like to tease.
Take our time. Absolutely.
Absolutely, mate.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to get to see one of the songs played live or something when I come out there.
Absolutely, sure. When you're coming over, we'll be playing shows in that period for sure, man. So
Sweet.
It'd be awesome to have you at one.
Yeah, I'd love to see some of the new proggy tracks, 100%. So just coming about, Chris, you mentioned a couple of influences there, like Aman Ra, which that new album, was it To Dawn? I couldn't listen to it. It was too much for me. Like, I like music, but now at the same time, I was away in a place called Carrion Island. The sun was beaming, and I was listening to that, and it just was the complete bad mix of vibes,
Yeah.
Bringing it down.
Oh, totally, yeah. But Lockie, like, what's your? Are you a fan of like the Opeth stuff, or do you bring something different as well?
I mean, I do. I love my heavy music, but I find myself not listening to it like as much as other metal musicians and other metal drummers. But I love like Cult Leader was like Chap showed me Cult Leader, and they were a big influence when we started doing our thing. And Russian Circles, I absolutely love him. And his drumming, and he's another like single kick, minimal setup, but still does the most amazing shit possible. So I do love like metal and listening to it and like metal drumming and stuff. But honestly, man, I'm like most of the time I'm listening to like Tom Petty and Thin Lizzy and shit. And then we get in the studio. I know. Then we get in the studio, and then I go balls to the wall, fucking like heavy, hitting as hard as I can. But I was just listening to American Girl in the car on the way over.
I love that.
That's just called old age. When you don't listen to metal anymore.
Yeah,
I do understand what you mean though. Like, sometimes you need just a little bit of break to get away from metal. So should we listen to Initiation before we sign off? Because actually, I just had the further one question after that, but let's just whack this on. This is coming off of the new album, correct? Which is due out in about 1 billion years by the sounds of it. 1
billion years, mate. We'll be old and grey.
Right, let's go. This is wicked by eye as well.
Yeah, dude.
This riff.
Straight chug.
Absolute chugger. And you just know Lockie's going to come in soon.
Caveman drumming.
Yeah.
Two toms and a snare.
Yeah, I could get it all out in the studio.
I love this. Those sort of like spangly guitars you have over the top. This for me is perfect. The dynamics in the song, like the heavy, the mellow, and you just know this.
That was an interesting I think of writing it during or first writing a song, like having it chop off like that. That was the first one. That was quite an idea that I thought, no, I don't know about this, man. I don't know if it's gonna work. And then once we had it, like, that worked.
Oh, super. Like, and that's like the proggy stuff we're talking about, like going back to Opeth. They do that so well, and you've captured that brilliantly on this track.
Yeah, they're definitely masters of that for sure.
Yeah. What's nice about this as well is you can actually hear the bass.
Yeah,
Like,
Tony will make sure of that.
but I mean, in Doom and Sludge, it is more prevalent. But in a lot of metal, you just hearing some of the mixes, the bass, you just can't even hear anything.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. It's just really loud guitar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was very deliberate. Like on earlier mixes for this one, it was even more forward. There was as always. Definitely on that page. I'll put it as like a 3-day full focus. Don't want the current, right? So
Yeah.
want bass and really doing that whole
Do you ever think you need another guitarist, Chris?
I think it would be helpful for sure as far as like when it comes to playing live and not being so naked, you know. But I don't think it would work. Like if we play with the idea of bringing other people, just so we can do more layers, really. Maybe deeper, and very live. You know, if we don't have any sampling or anything like that. We like to, but it has to be the right person. I think.
Just another bit of the pot you have to split, then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's not so much that though. It's more just, I think, the process.
Yeah.
I don't know. But if the right person came along and it worked, then absolutely.
Yeah. Nice that you're open about it, Leo.
Yeah. Just someone to operate the button.
Yeah.
But no, it's nice that you're open about it and you're not just like being, no, this is our thing. Like, this is, you know, you're open to have someone else on board if necessary.
Absolutely. Like we had some rehearsals at one stage with someone doing like sampling and like pads and things like that at one point, which was cool. I think it was cool. We liked the idea behind it.
Sorry, I cut across you there because this fucking section, pure filth.
Absolutely.
There's so much going on in this song. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Chaos.
There's the chaos. There's the harmony. There's melody. There's chugging riffs.
Yeah.
Just to change their tempos and everything, it's wicked. The cymbal sounds really, really crisp as well.
Yeah. Bluesy will make sure he gets the most out of the drum.
Yeah.
Lately I've been favouring like a Diligent Crash Tune, that's actually what it's called. And I think in that last sort of bit, I'm just absolutely fucking wailing on that.
Hammering it.
Yeah.
They're all max slides too.
Yeah, all big boys.
Wicked track. Absolutely tuned. And
Much.
this is what I was saying about at the beginning, the change or the difference between your earlier work and Initiation, which you listen to. For me, I think what you have on Initiation is a complete body of work that took a lot of your older stuff and your bass line, but you've thrown in so much there. Like I was saying, you've got so much diversity, dynamics on the track. You've got the chug and riffs start with the melodic sections. There's even there's like those prog style drum sections in there that just changes it up and just makes the track so much more interesting to listen to. So I can see why it's been a lead single from it. Any idea where it's going to come on the album?
I think probably like track 3, track 4.
Good.
That kind of placement. Yeah, that's probably around the center point.
Yeah.
At this stage, it seems like the track list is kind of going to be a little like one side will be more kind of up tempo versus the other side that'll probably be more like atmospheric.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought when you said up tempo and then the other side, I was thinking Amen Ra. Oh God. Just half of Amen Ra.
A side.
Yeah,
Oh, listen, yeah.
But don't turn it over, just start there. Put the needle back and start.
But do you think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think it's a fair statement for me that you sort of have found where you are as a band now with this new record?
I would say so.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely say that completely. And kind of like back to what you were asking earlier on about like releasing things and what our output over time. Like I said, some of this stuff has been old, and we've been very not deliberate, I suppose, in like writing certain songs for certain reasons. But it naturally has kind of created what we think is going to be a very dynamic listen. Like it won't be one style, AC/DC record. Like it's definitely going to be. I feel like every song is definitely going to be almost like a different genre. But there's themes that run throughout it where it goes, oh, it makes sense that this band's doing this.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love hearing bands that do that. Like even I was just thinking on the way here before, I think they are from the UK, like Malevolence. I listened to one of their new tracks. And it was like, you got the one track and you can hear like, 10, 12.
Was that broken glass?
I know it's broken water, still water runs deep.
Oh, still water run deep. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what was on the way back from Canberra. That's right. And I was like, man, I can hear like so much like different influence in this, but they're not ripping off it. They're just clearly, being influenced by it and just repping it. And it's sick. I love that,
After we finished, I'll talk to you about Malevolence.
Yeah, sure,
because I saw them last week here in Dublin, and
Nice.
I've the new record as well, so I'll talk to you about it after. I can't say too much now, but
absolutely, I'd love to hear it, man.
Yeah. Well, listen, this has been great. We could chat all day, but I'm delighted that we actually finally got to sit down and do this. It's been, we've been talking since the start of the year, I think, have we? It was
about
early.
that, man. Yeah, it's been crazy, like you said, with the tour and everything coming on. We've been trying to find the time, and yeah, thanks heaps for making the time for us, man. We appreciate it.
No. Listen, this we're on about, talking to bands, giving some exposure from the other side of the world. So listen, November the new record comes out, there or thereabouts. Initiation's out now. Another single will be coming at some point, I'd imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. So pretty much around around August, September. From there on, there'll be more shows and whatnot, more happening. We're playing Blighttown around that time. So that's like a big one of the biggest metal festivals in the country. Like an hour out of Alice Springs, so middle of the desert. It's like Revocation on it.
Hot. Revocation.
Yeah, it was their first ever international headlines up for that particular. They're only coming out to Alice Springs, so they come to Australia for one show, middle of the desert.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy lineup. Even bands like punk bands like Amel and the Sniffers are playing it. So that'll be the kind of start of the next. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That'll be the start of like the next cycle. So I'm sure in support of that kind of thing, we'll have another track coming out around then.
For sure.
Oh. And you guys are on Instagram as well, aren't you? Mountain Wizard Death Cult. You're not on Twitter or Facebook, I don't know.
Not on Twitter, on Facebook.
Okay, cool.
But no Twitter. And YouTube, it's at our page or the Blighttown Records.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
For YouTube, for sure.
Cool. Well, listen, thanks again, Chris and Lachy from Mountain Wizard Death Cult. I wish you the best of luck with the album release and the rest of the touring. And I will see you guys in a few months' time.
Sounds good. Cheers,
man.
brother.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers, man.